been observing the construction of the roadworks in the Rodney Bay area along the main highway over the last few months, I guess like most other people who live in the north. And I put together a few comments under 4 subsections. The first one relates to the objective of the project. The second relates to the conceptualization of it. The third to the planning and execution. And the fourth to alternative concepts. So the objective of the project was originally to improve the functioning of the main Rodney Bay intersection. To facilitate that, the limit of works only needed to be a total of about, I would say, 800 meters of road reconstruction or upgrading. You would have extended it, 370 odd meters on either side, heading to Castries and then heading to Gros Islet. At this point, it extends all the way, up to the Key Largo intersection. That section of road, really serves no purpose to enhance the functioning of the Rodney Bay intersection itself. An additional objective could have been to improve traffic flow into Castries, but with the current project, all that will result is transferring that bottleneck to either the Montgiro-Monchy intersection or a bit further down to the Computer World intersection. But there will be no improvement. There will be no reduced travel times in the mornings, during rush hour to get into Castries. So having these 2 roundabouts at Old Military Road and at the Key Largo intersection, it is not going to improve the travel times during rush hour. The second thing is the conceptualization of it. There are a lot of things that were overlooked. Originally, when the construction of the project had started, the first roundabout was being set out at the Old Military Road intersection, and the second roundabout was being set out at the Rodney Heights intersection. And I remember there being a lot of talk about how close the 2 roundabouts were and the safety hazards associated with having 2 roundabouts so closely spaced. I think the first person to really voice that was Calix George Jr. And everything he said was spot on. It's only after that program had aired that I noticed, efforts were being made a couple months later to set up this second roundabout at the Key Largo intersection. The third thing is the planning and execution, which, in my opinion, I think wasn't well done, primarily because the design was incomplete, as I mentioned before, and because of that, a lot of mistakes have been made. For one, you can see the section of sidewalk outside the Railway Park as you approach the Volney gas station coming from the north. You can see that there's a section of sidewalk there that the levels are completely incoherent. They don't follow, so they're gonna have to basically use a lot of makeup concrete to end up having a section of sidewalk that's about 700 mils thick. You only use those sorts of concrete cross sections to build bridges, or with a 700 mil thick slab can probably span as much as 50 feet. So for a sidewalk, it's a real overkill, and I just see a lot of things like that happening along length of the road. Too many to mention every single one, but the main consequence of that is very poor planning and rushing the construction, not taking time to really think through exactly how they're gonna execute the project. There are other things that have been overlooked as well. When the length of road to be reconstructed has been increased by so much, it's going to be necessary to implement or to construct a series of pedestrian overpasses. Originally, when we had done the proposal I had mentioned to you, we only had 1 pedestrian overpass because the limit of works was very small. It was less than 800 meters, as I mentioned. So there was a pedestrian overpass going from around the Railway Park, Rodney Heights development to a bus stop just in front of the Providence building or JQ Plaza. But now, I mean, because it extends so far, you're going to probably have to have a series of pedestrian crossings or pedestrian underpasses or overpasses or something that will disrupt the traffic flow even further and kind of defeat the purpose of it. Is also going to bump up the budget even higher than it already is. The fourth point is really related to some more viable concepts, which I think would have made a lot more sense. The obvious option that I think a 5-year-old will come up with and it will work is an asymmetric roundabout at the main intersection. I mean, that would have resolved the problem of improving the traffic flow across the intersection. That is what the Ministry of Infrastructure had initially asked for from bidders on that project, but I don't know. We never got a response to our submission, so I don't know. The second alternative I would have suggested is something like an overpass. The overpass would have very limited land acquisition requirements, and it would be a much longer term solution than a roundabout. The overpass could also have been incorporated into a longer term plan for that section of roadway. Just like some years ago, I remember the Bonte Bridge was replaced and 4 lanes were incorporated into that as part of a more long-term plan. I mean, the same approach could have been used for this project and an overpass constructed so that it would probably be there for the next 50 years, beyond us. And the third option is a signalized intersection where the drain that runs along the perimeter of the Radway Park, that could have simply have been, boxed and slabbed, and a turning lane introduced so that motorists coming from Grosley and other areas north of the main Rodney Bay intersection could line up and wait for traffic light to indicate to them to turn right into Rodney Bay, while the traffic on the left of them, would just be, free flowing into Castries. In my opinion, I think the worst thing about the concept currently being constructed is that for motorists who want to go into Rodney Bay, who are coming from the north, so like Grosley, Bonte, etc., you're going to have to drive all the way down to Old Military Road and turn around there and then come back up to go into Rodney Bay. And when you're coming out of Rodney Bay, if you want to go to town, you're going to have to drive all the way up to Kilago, Larry Tretch Road, and then turn around and come all the way back down. I mean, that was completely unnecessary. If any one of the other 3 alternatives were used, you'd have been able to reduce travel times, vehicle operating costs, etc. Road maintenance costs over a long time. There was no detailed study done for this thing. It was just a rushed, unplanned, poorly executed project, and it's very easy for people to see that now.